Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Swarm Talk. Georgia Tech fans, we're excited to have you back in the building. Obviously, we're always presented by Section 103. We had that awesome new little intro logo that one of the viewers made, actually, Ralph. One of the viewers made that fantastic video, but we are so excited to be bringing you some great content as always. We've already got some comments. My man David, Ralph, click on David's comment. He was in the show ready to go before we started. We need to get a new OC and DC. We're going to talk a little about that light tonight. And Scott wants to open up with a little bit of a prediction. Who goes first at season's end? Listen, this is going to be very interesting conversation tonight. It's going to be, I think, heads will roll, Ralph, at the end of the year. Not figuratively, or figuratively, not literally, I should say. That's actually, I want to give a shout out. Michael Barton threw up that logo. Ralph, I want to show that one more time. That logo once again. I got it on my side here. Just look at that. Look at that little swarm talk action. We're excited to have that as well and be rolling with that. It's a ton of fun. But listen, we appreciate you tuning in. We took a week off, had some things to tend to, but we're back at it once again tonight. Scott, we're going to get your comment here in the little opening monologue of what Georgia Tech football does. Now, listen, tonight's show is going to be running all the way up until 7:29. You're saying why? That's because the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, the defending ACC tournament champions, are tipping off at 7:30 tonight from McCamish Pavilion. We're going to talk a little bit right that. Michael, I love the comment. Woohoo! Yes, you did get recognition from that. That was over on Twitter. If you're on Twitter and you're tuning in, head over to Facebook. That's the Crowded Booth on Facebook. You'll find us under the Swarm Talk tab. We are continuing to grow on that side. We want your subscription to that. So it's free completely. You just subscribe for free on YouTube. But the biggest thing is that you can leave your comments. And my man Ralph over here on the side is able to pull those and talk to you about that. But let's dive in here. The biggest thing we want about this is we want conversation from you. We want to, and I'll say this, I know that there has to be conversation from you guys on this topic. Georgia Tech falls to Miami at Hard Rock Cafe. No, I mean the Hard Rock Stadium, not the Hard Rock Cafe. But listen, there's an issue. There's no doubt a problem happening within Georgia Tech's program. I want to point out one big thing. I said I was going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good in this game is that Jahmyr Gibbs is the best player on the team. And it's probably not even close. He's one of the best players Georgia Tech has had on the roster in the past 5 to 6 years. Dynamic player. He needs to be touching the ball more than 13 times a game. He had 9 rushes and 4 receptions. You have got to get Jahmyr Gibbs the ball more. I'll say that first off right there. And that tells you, too, later on in tonight's show, what I'm going to talk about with this as well. You have to give Gibbs more touches. There's just no rhyme or reason of why he's not getting more touches. I know that this is a loaded running back room, but I'll say it again. I've said it many times. You can't coach for the portal. Jemias Griffin's going to get playing time this weekend. I understand what he does, but you cannot coach for the portal. Jeff Sims, another player, 21 of 38, 194 yards, 1 pick, 1 touchdown against Miami. What is my assessment of that? Jeff Sims is a talented quarterback. Offensive line is abysmal. They're bad. They're terrible. They can't stop anything. They're not doing a good job. And Jeff Sims is going back to pass 38 times a game. That's not how Georgia Tech's offense is set up right now. They're not set up to go and do that. They also kind of ran into a little bit of a buzzsaw and a Miami team that is, I don't know if they're playing for Manny Diaz's job or playing for own pride, but this was a team in Miami this past offseason. A lot of people said they might have won the transfer portal because they brought in just about everybody in the transfer portal you could think of. The big addition was Charleston Rambo. I think he had a touchdown catch or 2 in this game. But Tyler Van Dyke, where did this kid come from? Miami's won their last 3 games. They're well on their way to be able to be an 8-win team, which in the ACC is going to be near the upper echelon of ACC teams. But the big thing for me in this, 22 of 34, 389, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. That doesn't mean that Miami was out there mistakes, though. The Georgia Tech defense forced 3 fumbles. They recovered all of those. But there's still some issues. We're going to get to that and talk about that here in a second. But once again, we appreciate our sponsor, Section 103. You go get their merch. Use code Crowded Booth for 10% off your very first order. Hey, it's getting a little cold, getting Christmas time. It's a great time to go buy one of those gifts and have it over at Section 103. Want to make sure you join the show as well. Let us know in the comments what you think about what's going on. I'll start with this. Offensively, Georgia Tech does not have the horses to up front to do much of anything. This is not a team that can allow for they can't allow to develop stuff. They're not allowing the offensive line does not allow for plays to develop. So these play action passes, it's not going to be something. Everything's going to be a quick hitter, slant, out route, quick run. Nothing can be drawn out. Scott right here, we got his comment. Sims doesn't need to be running the RPO. I was talking to Miles Brooks' father. He said he watched Sims his high school days in Florida and said he was a passing quarterback, not an RPO quarterback. Listen, Sims has wheels on designed quarterback runs. We've seen him be able to do that. But this offensive line right now, and I'll stand by it, Scott, I think that the offensive line and play has to improve. There's no ifs, ands, buts about it. If you want to have an elite team in college football, you have to be able to lead up front on both sides of the football. You have to. There's no excuse if you don't to be a good team and to take that next step. You have to have that. Georgia Tech doesn't have that. They're held back by young decision making, offensively. Now we'll get to defense later. They're held back by young decision making, and they're also held back by an offensive line that is veteran. But just because you bring back a veteran group, we've learned so far this season does not mean they're going to be better. I've said it again. I'll say it one time. I think Ja'Kiah Leftwich is going to be a big option. I think this offensive line, that the younger guys that came in over the past year are going to be better. I think they're better right now than what's on the field, but they have not been able to get that experience. They haven't been able to accumulate or get everything they need to be able to play at the college level. Talent-wise, God-given talent-wise, yeah, they probably are better. I think that helps Sims a little bit in that run game. But it's really interesting to see. Ralph's getting on me over there because I'm hitting the comment button. It's just habit, Ralph. It's habit. But the offensive line has to play better. We say it every single week. And the play calling with that has to change. You have to recognize you can't be so bullheaded and just going with the idea of, well, we are going to be able to execute our game plan. You haven't. You have not been able to do that under many different circumstances. It's been very, very bad. We've seen the offensive line, Jeff Sims has zero time, no time in the pocket to do anything. When you have no time in the pocket to do anything, what does that do? It makes quarterback feel like they have to rush their decisions, which leads to bad passes. The interceptions that Jeff Sims has thrown this season have been just that. They've been bad decisions caused by no opportunity. Go back and watch the game. I was watching it again, rewatching it this weekend, from this weekend. This Georgia Tech game, how many times does the center get absolutely bullied and both sides of the pocket collapse? Now, what does a quarterback think when both sides collapse? He's going to step up in the pocket. Well, you can if you have pressure coming from everyone there. It's really, I would say this, and we'll bring up Randall's comment. I think that Georgia Tech has to have a good offensive line before the jury's out on Jeff Sims. I don't think it's fair to judge Jeff Sims until he gets a good offensive line, because there's not many quarterbacks, if any, in the country right now that would be excelling with Georgia Tech's offensive line. That's the big problem. Randall Sanders, everyone is ready to replace Sims. He's got the whole line on him almost every play. Sims gives us the best chance to win. Defenses are not afraid of Yates' legs. And right now, Jordan Yates is hurt. So that's another big thing. What happens with that? But Randall, I agree with you. You cannot accurately give an assessment of Jeff Sims when you don't give him an offensive line. You can't do that. That's like going into your own job. All of us have jobs here. Hopefully, if you don't, that's okay as well. I'll go use my man Ralph for an example. My man Ralph drives for UPS. That would exactly be like Ralph's boss telling him, go deliver these packages, but we're not going to give you the car. We're not going to give the truck. If you don't give us the means to get somewhere, how are we ever going to get there? And right now, Georgia Tech's struggling because they don't have the means to be able to do anything. And I think the aspect of saying, well, put in Jordan Yates, it doesn't work like it. Doesn't matter who you put up there. Scott, you're right on the point. The fans yelling for Jordan Yates, I don't understand it. I don't get that aspect because, in my opinion, you have to be able. If this offensive line was playing up to par and Jeff Sims had 6 to 7 seconds to the football and he's still making these plays, then let's do that. Crowder Booth comment right there from Ralph. Everybody loves the backup. We've talked about that a lot on our normal show. We've talked about this show as well because it's been a hot topic of conversation for Georgia Tech. The guy with the clipboard is always the most popular guy to the fan base because they think maybe he could do better. You can't do any better when your offensive line plays like a wet paper sack. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. It's listen, and I'll say this too. I say all these things. It's not an indictment on anyone's character. When we talk about people playing, it doesn't mean they're not a great person. It doesn't mean that they don't, excel beyond the football field or in life. All of these young men will, especially at an institute like Georgia Tech. But on the field right now, and this is what I believe, because I don't think Brent Key is that dumb. Brent Key's a heck of an offensive line coach. He's recruited well. But they have young talent in the wings that's not ready. And if they throw them out there, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how much worse it could get. But there's certain guys out there that right now that should not be playing Power 5 football. That's the big thing. There's certain guys out there should not be playing Power 5, starting at a Power 5 school, and they're having to. Doesn't mean I don't think they're great people. Right now, Georgia Tech doesn't have a tight end. They don't have a tight end. All of these things are great stories. They're great stories. These guys that are on the roster, but they don't have a legitimate dual threat tight end. What do I mean by dual threat? The ability to block well, and when someone thinks he's going to block, he can go out and catch the pass. They don't have that. Not at a great level right now with Dylan Devaney going down due to injury. What do you have? You've got wide receivers that I think are going to – you have Adonicus Sanders, Malachi Carter, Nate McCollum, Kyrat McGowan. Kyrat McGowan is the best player that they've probably gotten in the transfer portal. Unreal athlete out of Northwestern, comes here. He does a great job. You have a quarterback that has the athleticism and the means to get different places, but he can't do it because the offensive line doesn't allow him. You've got a running back room. We keep talking about, it's a great running back room. It's a great running back room. Okay. Why is Jahmyr Gibbs getting nine carries a game? Four receptions. Now, I'd love to go back and see how many times they targeted him, but if you've got a guy that you truly believe, and we've said this, an all ACC type of performer, and he gets 13 touches a game, what are you doing? That's where you kind of call into the coaching staff and you say, don't literally call in, but that's when the coaching staff, we have to do what works right now. Frosted Orange, appreciate you tuning in, man. GT coaches are feeling the pinch from being overly positive and overselling our current talent and expectations. And Frosted, that might be part of it. Listen, I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer about this program. I still believe in the coaching staff. But listen, there was a reason that when Todd Stansberry hired Jeff Collins, it was a 7-year contract. There's a reason, because this is not like every other rebuild. And I've got a perfect example of, and Ralph may choke on his water a little bit when I say this, but I've got a perfect example I want to come up to in a second. Think of other teams that are rebuilding right now. Other teams that, or let's just say first-year coaches in the past 2 years. A great one for me right now is Auburn. Gus Malzahn out at Auburn. They bring in Brian Harsin. But the thing is a lot of people want to compare to what other programs are doing. Auburn had the athletes already. Auburn had the infrastructure to be able to build and continue, and we talked about it on our normal show. There's programs that even though they make the coaching changes, why do they experience success? It's because they already have an infrastructure and a base level that's higher than others. Georgia Tech didn't have that. There's a lot of Paul Johnson fans out there right now that might be tuning in the show live. They might be tuning into the show a little bit later on. But I'm going to tell you right now, Paul Johnson did not recruit at a high level at all. He did not, especially towards the end. This is not an indictment on him, but this is just the reality of the situation. Georgia Tech was not set up foundationally when Jeff Collins to be able to show improvement in years 2 and 3. This is to me like you are starting a whole program over. This is like starting a brand new program because it's a new culture, it's a new philosophy, it's a new I said philosophy, it's a new scheme. It's something entirely different. And until there's a full recruiting class, and Ralph and I've said this about a lot of different teams, until a coach has 4 years in, which means his first recruiting class, 5 years in, his first recruiting class is either left or they're seniors, that tells you a lot. How did the guys that he brought in immediately, how did they develop? And how did the players he's bringing in, how much are they playing an impact immediately? We're seeing at certain positions that's working right now for Georgia Tech. Some were not. David over here, the quarterback position should be wide open next season. And David, I don't know if I agree with it should be wide open. I mean, of course, competition is king. You're going to have that. I don't think that's the problem. I don't think Jeff Sims is the issue for this Georgia Tech team. It's going to be very, very interesting. Scott right there. Keep going down with Scott's comments. So, Scott backs over here. This Paul Johnson era set back Georgia Tech so far. It's not funny. And listen, it's great. You had success. You went to what? 2 Orange Bowls. This is before I started around with them. They won 1 Orange Bowl against Dak Prescott, beat Mississippi State. But you've got to be realistic about college football right now. And college football is not set up for a team like Georgia Tech to have success where they are in their current state. The ACC is a muddled mess. We're seeing what happens when transcendent players, we're talking about, as Ralph has said, game-changing players before on our regular show. When game-changing players leave a program, we're seeing how Clemson struggles. We are. For all the people that want to compare Clemson to Alabama, that's a whole other argument. Not even on the same playing field. Because Alabama loses their Heisman Trophy winners, and they just put in other guys that are not only just as talented, because the star rankings told us that, Ralph, but it's also they have the coaching and development that makes a difference. And that's what's big. You can look at all these star rankings, it's great, but how do you develop? So that's all for the offense. I want to move over defensively. Might just be a 30-minute roast session. Defensively, the secondary has taken a lot of flack. But Ralph, you had that number for me in the private chat over here. 389 passing yards, 563 total yards. Now, listen, I know a lot of people are like, there's been no improvement, no progress. I'm not buying that argument. You're not going to tell me that argument. There's been no progress. There has been progress. It's just not what you want to see, and I get that. But Georgia Tech has to make changes in the defense. Was talking, and this is from 2 different people, was talking with somebody who's close to the program and talking with a current recruit who's currently committed. The person who's close to the program told me it's absolutely ridiculous how bad the secondary plays and how much they keep the faith is there. Now, listen, I'm all for making sure a kid has confidence and faith in his own ability. I don't think it's right to yank him right out of a game the first time they make a mistake, but this isn't the first or second time. Getting beat, not even looking back, getting your eyes caught in the backfield. It's a mental thing right now. It's completely mental. The miscommunication. This is week 11. We're in week 11. You should not be having this miscommunication on the back end of a defense. You just shouldn't be having. It's just not acceptable. And you can make excuses. Oh, yeah. And I'm like I said, the secondary, love a lot of those guys. They're great interviews. We've talked with them. Sat down and talked with a couple of them at ACC Media Day. Great young men. But it does not change the fact that there has to be improvements made, and there's got to be some level of play that's got to improve. That's going to be something we have to keep an eye on in the next 3 weeks, and it's not going to be easy. Boston College comes in this weekend. That's about your only surefire win for the rest of the year. You go on the road to Notre Dame. Notre Dame's figuring some things out offensively, just quietly going along their day. And then you have the number 1 team in the country coming to town. And as Georgia Tech fans know all too well, this Georgia fan base will outnumber the Georgia Tech fans in Bobby Dodd Stadium. It's going to happen. So that's what I'm saying. I think that it's going to be something very interesting to see. David, back to his comment here. I want to see if Pyron can prove himself. I think they're going to give him the opportunity, but unless Zach Pyron comes in and completely dominates, it's going to be Jeff Sims' job. Scott, GT looks light years better than they did last year. Like Colin said today, if you don't see the progress, you don't want to see it. And Scott, that's the comment I wanted to bring up. We only have a couple more minutes here on the show. We're making this a short one today. Jeff Collins in his press conference today was quoted in saying, if you don't see the progress, then that just means you don't want to see it. Now, there's 2 ways you can look at this. You can say it's a coach trying to save his job. I don't think that's the case. People have said that. Or you can sit there and say that maybe we need to look at this from a different vantage point. Maybe we do. And I think that's what you have to do. With Georgia Tech and understanding where they came from and being realistic about it. Let's be really realistic about it. Georgia Tech was not in good shape when Jeff Collins got there. It was a program that had never really invested in recruiting, never really invested in the whole idea of marketing itself. And Jeff Collins did that. Jeff Collins has done that. He's trying to build the culture and get the players, and it's a hard thing to do. Year 3, I get it. 3 wins, that's frustrating. You have every right to be frustrated about that. But you got to be realistic about where this team is. Are there some games where you look on the schedule and say, yeah, we probably should have won those? Yep. But you know what I said a couple weeks ago? The only way that you get through that and learning how, I said this a couple weeks ago, Ralph, the only way you learn how to win is you have to lose first. You have to go through some of those growing pains. Georgia Tech's going right now through some of those. I think they're going to be on the better side of it for that. Looking over and talking a little bit about what happens the rest of the way. I want to talk about the next 3 games in this season, and then I want to close out with the part that I think my man Ralph over here is going to choke on his water on, and what I think Georgia Tech should strive to be. Ralph, I thought about this on my drive home on Sunday. Let's start out with what happened the next 3 weeks. Obviously, you have Boston College coming into town. You got to win this football game. Got to win this football game. Home game. It's going to be, the first time in a while that you get to play under the lights at Bobby Dodd. And check me on this. It might be the first time they play under the lights at Bobby Dodd all season. It feels like they have noon kickoff after noon kickoff. I think the Northern Illinois game was a 7 o'clock kickoff, but nobody ever wants to remember that. 3:30 kickoff against Boston College. You got to find a way to win this football game. If you win the football game, for the people who are obsessed with W's and L's, they'll feel better about themselves. Well, we went from 3 wins to 4 wins. Then you go to Notre Dame. There has to be, and then you play Georgia. There has to be some sense of pride. I've seen a lot of teams at the high school, other levels, who've come in and they struggle and they do these different things. And my biggest thing is that a team that, even though they're 1-7, and the biggest example is LSU this past weekend, they don't really have anything to play for. They've got a lame duck coach. They've got a coach that is going to be fired. Everyone knows it. He can't recruit because now he's in a weird situation. Who are you recruiting to? You're just recruiting to a brand name. But you still have a pride about you. You still have the wherewithal to want to go out on a high note. I don't think Georgia Tech, truthfully, I think the best case scenario is for them to go 1-2 over the next 3 games. You end the season 4-8, you take that in the offseason, and you work your butt off. But for some of the guys, especially these seniors, you're not going to be anymore. You need to take it upon yourself. You need to be able to say to yourself, this is not just about play for yourself. If you're not going to play, for that, at least play for yourself. And I'm not saying these guys don't want to play for the team. I'm saying, but have some pride in yourself as a college football player. You're going out there and getting sometimes embarrassed. Now, I say that it doesn't reflect on the scoreboard. That's the progress I'm seeing is last year and the previous year, you were getting blown out. You're really not getting blown out this season, except for Pitt, and no one really feels bad about that because Pitt's offense has shown at times to be absolutely lethal. But this situation right here, have some pride in yourself. You're playing at home. The Georgia game doesn't look all that winnable, really, to anybody in the country at this point. But the Boston College game is. It's one of the last times you're going to get to play, and if memory serves correctly, Georgia Tech is usually a noon kickoff. It's an appetizer for the Iron Bowl for fans here in the Southeast. Not that anyone needs one after Thanksgiving. But this is one of the last times you're going to play under the lights at Bobby Dodd in down Midtown Atlanta. Beautiful setting. Have some pride in yourself and try to go out there and win the football game. Blue Jackets right there. Apathy is setting in. Blue Jackets, that's over on Twitter, Ralph. No worries. I got it up here. Let me know what you mean by that with a little bit more context in that aspect, and we'll get you your comment here on the show. But there has to be some sort of pride taken. So what does that mean for the offseason? Let's say that they go 4-8. What do I think Georgia Tech needs to strive to be? Now, listen, every single team wants to strive to win a national championship. A coach is lying to you if they say that. But, Ralph, are you ready for this one? I think a perfect example of what Georgia Tech needs to look at, and don't worry, folks, it's not a team in the state of Georgia, it's Auburn. Auburn has often been referred to as the little brother of Alabama. Georgia Tech, the same case. Auburn typically struggles in recruiting due to having a juggernaut in their own state. Georgia Tech does the same thing, struggles with Georgia. But what Auburn does is they have a passionate fan base. I believe Georgia Tech has that. Not to the extent of what Auburn has right now, that's for sure. But you've got to find a way to be competitive and get athletes in there and have good coaching and have a scheme that works. And it's just gimmicky enough that every 5-6 years, it might just work and you find yourself in the college football playoff race. I'm not saying that's what they have to do, but I'm saying it would benefit them to go look at kind of how Auburn has built their program. Auburn, before Brian Harsin got there under the Gus Malzahn era, was a spread option type of offense. They got in some different personnel, which made them go away from the traditional run heavy aspect of it when they got Jarrett Stidham and all these guys in. But right now, Georgia Tech doesn't have let's just be honest, Georgia Tech doesn't have the dogs, the horses to line up against Georgia and run against them. They don't have to do that. It's very, very interesting. Let's get to the commentary here. Paul Tachio, do we get him from a man, Sean Taylor? Very, very interesting, Sean. That's be something that literally broke kind of 2 hours for the show. Haven't been able to look too much into it. That would be an interesting pickup. Milton High School lineman is transferring out of Clemson. That would be a big get. But listen, I know that the transfer portal is tantalizing. It's something that every fan is looking at right now to see what they can do, what they can get. But listen, you got to be able to develop your own players. That's just the bottom line. Blue Jackets, my man Tony over there. Those of us who care so much about the future are so tired of excuses. It's Tony, by the way, so we toss. I'm with toss up our hands until changes are made. And I get that. I haven't been around the program long enough to, I guess, to sit there and respect that aspect of it. And that might be on me. But I think that it's something that's very interesting with what the infrastructure is there. There's two ways of looking at it. You can sit there and you can say to yourself, well, they didn't have the infrastructure to begin with. That's plausible. Paul Johnson, as I said before, as we wrap up tonight's show, Paul Johnson did not recruit at Georgia Tech, at a high level at least. Now you have a current regime in there that feels loyalty to the current players. They feel loyalty there. And the biggest thing for me is that's great. You want to have a feel-good atmosphere in the locker room. No one's going to tell you they don't want to have a happy chemistry locker room. But what would you rather have? A happy chemistry locker room that loses every single game? Or would you rather have a locker room that they're still happy, but everyone's on edge, not in a bad way, but in a competitive way, and they're winning football games? That's what you want to get to. I understand it's frustrating. I get that. I absolutely get that. I know that it's something that is very tough for these guys to figure out. Ken Fowler, we appreciate you tuning in as well, my friends. Back to Sean Taylor. Auburn's SEC title helps them recruit better than us. And I get that. Auburn, they do have a little bit more of an edge in recruiting, but that's something you aspire to be. I'm not saying in year 4 they're going to be this. I'm not going to tell you in year 5 that they're going to go to the ACC championship game. What I'm telling you is there has to be improvement. Are you seeing it in some places? Yeah, you are. But you're also seeing this team be held back by a faulty offensive line as well that can't give this team any time. You're seeing a secondary that gets caught with their eyes in the backfield completely all the time. And it's just, to me, that's a mental aspect. I don't coach football. I know there's people watching right now that do that, and they coach it and they've been around it at the highest level. But you have to have discipline. It's a mental thing for me defensively right now for Georgia Tech. They've got some good athletes. They've got some really good athletes waiting in the wings. But all this talk about these different guys being able to make an impact, well, let's see it. Let's see the impact be made. Because right now, I know that they had the turnovers. This past game against Miami, they had some turnovers. It came back to bite them. I understood, get that. But you've got to be able to turn a corner at some point and make some adjustments. They should not have a 3-win season this year. They shouldn't. Plain and simple. I'm not saying this team should challenge for the ACC championship, but with how bad the rest of the conference was, they really had a chance. If you go to a couple games, and let's go back, Northern Illinois should have won that game. I'll even throw in Clemson. You had an opportunity to win that game in the end. You could have won that game. That changes to what, Ralph? They're 3-6 right now. That'd be 5-4. You're a winning record with 3 games away to win yourself a game. Probably should have won at least one of the 3 against Virginia, Virginia Tech, and Miami. If you win 2 of those, now you're looking at yourself at a 7-3 team. I mean, it's so crazy. And that's where, for me, you take the step back and you say, okay, it's so small, the differentiation. I get that. I understand that. I know it's frustrating. But listen, guys, we're going to have to be able to make a change somewhere. I hope they can do that. I think that they can. It's going to be very interesting. A couple more comments before we get out of here. Huge fan of Jeff Collins, but no more excuses. Got to find a way to win, period. We heard words of the hiring. Elite competition is king, new culture, but bad losses trump words. I get that. I understand that. I think you got to be realistic for where the program was, where they are right now, and what kind of changes they can make there in the beginning. We appreciate it as always, everyone. Make sure to like, subscribe to the channel. Make sure to share this with your friends, your Georgia Tech community. We're going to be back, actually. My man Ralph doesn't know this. We're going to be back on Thursday looking ahead to Boston College. We'll catch you once again at 7 p.m. Eastern on Thursday. Appreciate it, everyone, and we will see you on Thursday night.